Welcome to Ethical Issues Media. Today we are here with Jason Miranda, your host, and Liam Duff, who will be talking to you about the ethical issue of genetic engineering.
What is genetic engineering?
So basically, genetic engineering is the process of adding DNA to an organism to manipulate the cell structure. So by adding new DNA that isn't found in an organism, you're able to create a tolerance to certain chemicals or even diseases. For example, by adding a new type of DNA to a plant could make it resistant to insecticides and pesticides, which could then lead to making farming easier. The type of genetic engineering that I'm exploring at the moment is used to prevent diseases. So basically, before birth, new DNA is added, and once that DNA is added, the cell structure of the body is manipulated or changed, and various characteristics of the child's growth are also changed. So, for example, the gene for red hair is usually associated with pale skin. While having pale skin, you're more susceptible to UV rays penetrating, so that can be develop into cancerous genes, that sort of thing. So with genetic engineering, by adding or replacing the red hair gene, that means you're able to remove the gene of having pale skin, and then that'll decrease the chance of getting skin cancer when the child is older.
So, Liam, what's your opinion on this ethical issue? Is it morally acceptable? If so, why?
In my opinion, I guess it goes both ways. Yes, I do believe it is in some ways morally right, because what we're doing here is we're trying to prevent disease and we're trying to aid people and stop people from dying. Um, so, if you look at it from that aspect, it is right. We're trying to prevent death and create longer life expectancy. However, in terms of looking at changing, cell structure for just looks or to make super athletes, that is definitely, in my opinion, not morally right.
How does the church view this issue based on their morals and ethics?
On the topic of Christian standpoints, their view is firmly based on universally accepted ideology of God's creation, and the tampering with His creation opposes the Catholic social teachings of respect for human life and respect for dignity of persons. So, according to the Catechism of the Catholic Church, their opinion is that the experimentation of human being cannot be legitimate, as they are contrary to the dignity person and to moral law. However, the church do they do allow treatments to be able to prevent disease. So I assume in years to come, genetic therapy, what we call it, will be used and will be accepted by the church because it is just another way to treat diseases, just as chemotherapy is used for cancer. That's a type of treatment. Genetic therapy is another way to just treat diseases. So eventually, I think that view from the church will change.
How is genetic engineering being used to treat diseases?
So basically, as I stated before, the outcome is the ability to create a new tolerance to certain chemicals and particular diseases such as HIV, genetic blindness, that sort of thing. So Eric Lander, a professor at Harvard Medical School, shared his view on the topic, explaining that the issue of hemophilia, excessive bleeding because of low multitude of proteins, needed to make clots, can be edited by editing stem cells. So by adding that new or replacing that DNA, we're able to prevent tolerance to diseases.
How is using types of treatment any different to something like chemotherapy?
Both of which are used to save lives. However, genetic engineering is not considered morally right by the church. The reason why is because the church believe this is due to manipulation of God's creation. We are all gifts from God, and we believe that we do not have the right to to change them, I guess. But as I did state, I do believe as time will go on, they will eventually realize that this is a different type of treatment, um, you know, compared to everything else. So,
Will your Catholic faith change your perspective on genetic engineering?
um, Yes, I do believe it will change. As Catholics, we are taught to respect the creation of God and the sanctity of life. Um, so, if from my Catholic perspective, yes, of course, we are taught to respect God's creation, and that we aren't able to change or manipulate what His work is. So obviously that changes my view on it. We're taught to not interfere with creation of God. So we shouldn't be allowed to change or take God out of the equation. So I think at this point in time, obviously Catholic views and the Catholic faith will change my perspective on genetic engineering. Thank you for listening to today's segment. Make sure to tune in next week for our next segment with Jason Miranda, your host, and also Luke Carling, who will be talking to you about whether school uniforms should be applicable.